Welcome. So here we have Jonathon Hansler, who is an actor, a writer, a comedian, and a director. He will be talking today on a topic called Hero's Journey. Welcome, Jonathon Hansler, to the show.
Thank you very much.
So he will be talking today on a topic called Hero's Journey.
Yeah.
And he will be explaining
what that means.
What that means.
Well, it's coined by a guy called Joseph Campbell, who wrote a book about it. And it's the idea that we face a lot of obstacles in our life. And some face them more than most. And I certainly fall into that camp. I'll run it very quickly. I'm currently writing a movie a little bit based on my life, but all fictional. All the characters are fictionalized. So the story is true, but the character's not. So in other words, it gives you more room to expand on a story. But I've also written a one-man show based on my life called Funny in the Head. And the idea being that, funny means funny, haha, very funny, but what's behind the smile, what's behind the laughter, what's behind that, and often you find with comedians there's a lot of sadness, there's a great deal of, upset, and they sometimes, and the way, how do they get through that? Well, they drink, or they take drugs, or they do all these things, and I did them all. I'm an ex-alcoholic. I'm now 10 and a half years dry, only 10, I gave up on January the 24th, 2014, after doing a meditation session. A Buddhist, I went off and did, Buddhist, sorry, it wasn't Buddhist, it was called Vipassana meditation.
Okay.
And you spend 10 days in complete silence. And you meditate from, I think it was 4 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night. You have meals in between, and that
You must have a lot of patience, yeah.
Yes, I've had to learn that. This industry requires so much patience anyway. It's such a difficult one, because it's rather like having a lucky dip. You don't know what you're going to pick. It's like when Forrest Gump, he says, "Well, life's like a box of chocolates. Don't know what you're going to get." And that's kind of a little bit like what it's like in our industry. It really is kind of, you don't know what you're picking. Whether you're going to, one day it's going to be a really bad, a Coca-Cola bottle, or the next day it'll be a Black Magic or a very nice truffle. It's my comedy side coming out. It's my way of coping.
Yeah, it's fine. That's good.
Yeah.
So, if you could tell us about your story.
Yeah, sure.
So,
well, I was born to a military family which kind of totally didn't suit me. And the funny thing is, as a Buddhist, one of the things you realize is that it's up to you whether you believe this or you don't. But in Buddhism, you kind of believe like you're kind of assigned to a family. It's like you come into this life via, you're almost set up. So people say, if you make the decision that you want to go through life completely in one, not coming back, just going through, then you're going to have a tough one. You're going to have a tough one. And so in my one-man show, I have these two kind of angels debating what to do to me. So they decide that I'm going to go to one of the worst boarding schools in Britain, owned by a paedophile. That my father will be a military officer. My mother will be an artist. They're not going to get on. My father will become an alcoholic. So there's all this sort of thing is, all sort of panned out by in my mind. These two angels who are deciding, or spirits are deciding my future. A bit like Christmas Carol, I think. I'm a very huge fan of Charles Dickens. So anyway, I went to a boarding school, sadly owned by a paedophile. He died before anything could happen, but there were so many schools in those days that just literally, there were so many, and even some people that haven't come forward. I've actually appeared on television. I spoke on BBC. I spoke on ITV News Southeast, because it was set. My boarding school was in Dorset, but I went to another school. So that school was very sexual, and the bullies were actually terrible, because the poor bullies were being abused, and they were wondering why the people who they were bullying were not. So that's why you were bullied, is because you weren't getting what they were getting. But it was all covered up. They didn't talk about it. So all this stuff was going on. So they had this culture of, God, it was horror. And by the time I went to my second school, which was extremely brutal, and that's all covered up. I mean, this is the trouble when you give power to 16-year-olds. You give a 16-year-old power, he's marching around, he thinks he owns the place. What do you know at 16? What do you know? What do you understand at the age of 6? You don't know a damn thing. So this is a ridiculous system. You know, this is a ridiculous system. There's no parents there to tell you anything. No one can, do you know what I mean? It's crazy. And it wasn't like we were a very wealthy family. My father had to get a job. My dad's desire was to send us to the best schools. And that was it, you know. But we didn't have the money to do that. But my father, when he was a boy, was sent to a boarding school. And he was left there on his own when he was 4 years old. And his parents kind of ignored him. And you think to yourself, well, surely he would have learned. But anyway, so his desire was to send me to this school. And the only way I could go there was my father got a job in Qatar, which is a tax-free state.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Okay.
So he was able to fulfill his dreams. It wasn't my dreams. This was not my dream at all. I was having such a good time in the local comprehensive. I was very popular. I had loads of friends. And I used to love. I was Arsenal. I always played. I was an Arsenal kid. I loved Arsenal.
Yes.
And my mate loved Tottenham, and we kicked the ball around. We were great friends, and it was lovely. But then you see, everything was in colour. I just remember it all in colour, and suddenly it all went to black and white. Everything just went into black and white, and it went to these things where I couldn't remember what happened. Still to this day, I can't remember what happened in that place, you know. And you carry the scars from there because, you know, they're imprinted in you, but you don't realise they are. So you end up going to the next school, but you're already traumatised from the first school, so you're moving on to another school. You go, what the hell's going on here? So you know, and the kids are picking on you because they just can see from your laser eyes if you're walking around like Mr. Vulnerable, going, hello, I'm Mr. Vulnerable. Look at me. You're going to love me. You're going to bully me to death because the simple thing is you don't know what's going on. You can't cope. You're using a coping mechanism at an age which is incredibly difficult to do. So you're trying to manage yourself in a world which is unmanageable. Can you imagine? So I was very good at running. I was the first 8.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I used to run. Mainly to try and escape, I think. I mean, you know, I tried, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, to not come back, I think was my, But no, it was that was difficult. And then, of course, I decided to go into the entertainment industry because, in a way, it's a wonderful way to hide. Because you can be anything, you can be anyone, you know what I mean?
It's very true.
Yeah.
It's very...
Puts a mask on, easy.
It's easy to hide in
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and then you drink and that goes, and you end up drinking. I was very disciplined, though. I wouldn't drink during a show at all, but afterwards I get absolutely pie-eyed. My problem was I wasn't an alcoholic in the sense that I had to have a drink every moment, or there had to be, or I had to pour a drink in the morning. No, I was a social alcoholic in the sense that I would drink and drink and drink and drink until there wasn't a drop left. And at night, what would happen is you'd go to a bar, and the actual table would have loads of drinks on them, right?
Yes.
You did something called minesweeping. You know what minesweeping is?
No, what's...
Well, minesweeping is where you literally take, because you're addicted to alcohol, so you literally take any drink and just knock it back. It didn't matter what it was. Someone might have vomited in the bloody drink. But as long as it smelled of alcohol, you risk the vomit.
So
I mean, that's how terrible it is, you know?
It can be that terrible.
It can be that terrible.
But
It's a hook.
But what was your cure to stop you to be sober? Like, how did you...
Well, that was
your tips?
How did I do it? Buddhism. Not Buddhism. Sorry, that comes later. I did Vipassana for 10 days. And then after that, I remember going to a film screening of a film I did. And I remember that I had 4 very large glasses of red wine purely to see what would happen, you know, if I had a hangover. And that, because I'd been in this 10-day sort of trance, if you like. I wanted to be able to sit outside myself and watch what this was doing to me. And I realised that actually I was killing myself. I was poisoning myself to death. I wasn't going to last long on this earth if I was going to carry on that path.
No, exactly.
So that was it. That was the day I decided no more. That was it. No more.
Yeah.
I mean, I was destroying everything. My house was falling to bits. Everything was falling to bits. And I was unaware at that time what it was inside me that was doing this. I mean, the doctors were the NHS were useless. They said to me, basically, I thought they had anxiety or depression. No, I had trauma. There's a hugely different thing because it relates to your childhood. Anxiety and depression can come anywhere, you know, in life. They're not. So
it's true. It can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And complex trauma is like, it's almost like having, if you like shrapnel in the body. So you got like, you're not quite sure when it's going to come up or when it's not going to come up because you don't know where it is. So, you know, it's kind of, Yeah, it's lots of like moments from your life which can appear at any moment, but you don't remember them. So it's much harder than PTSD, which is one event, and that was coined after the Vietnam War in 1975 when they decided that, which was shell shock in the First World War, when soldiers would have terrible remembrance of like a tank or something blowing up like that, or something horrible like that, and that would be what they coined, and they said that was a particular memory.
Yeah. So what made you go into Buddhism then?
I was at my wit's end
How were you introduced to it?
via a card.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, via card. I've got some on me. I've got something. I'm not going to shakabuki everybody. Don't worry. I won't do that.
Yeah.
But that's what they call shakabukas when you hand a card out and somebody else joins the Buddhist thing. But it's certainly, it's been incredible, I've got to say. And that doing before Buddhism, doing that chanting, the meditation before doing that was amazing as well. It was incredible to do 10 days of that. But Buddhism, I do something called Nichiren Buddhism, which is Tina Turner's Buddhism, Herbie Hancock, Orlando Bloom. I mean, the list goes on, and it's incredible. It's life-saving stuff. It's extraordinary, and it's certainly changed me as a human being. I went through a difficult moment when I left my home. I sold my home in Hackney, and it was a bad move because it was in a bad state, and I could have done it up. And to this day, there's all those regrets. Oh, I could have done this. I could have done that. But then I suddenly realised it's coulda, shoulda, whatever. It's the materialistic path, and that's not the way to go in life. It's not.
No,
it really
exactly.
isn't. Don't take that path, whatever you do.
No.
That road leads to misery, folks. No, it is. It is the miserable. It is the miserable way to go. Honestly, in the materialistic world, which is why I say about when you said about EastEnders, I said yes, it's very nice to have done it, but it's a materialistic look at life. It's not nothing.
But it is, it is, people would think it is huge because EastEnders is UK.
Yeah, I mean it is.
show.
It is a huge show, definitely.
Everyone
and it's an
knows
achievement.
about
It's
it.
an achievement, certainly. It's
Yeah.
an achievement, but it's not. In the great scheme of things, I prefer to walk in nature or look at.
Yeah, exactly.
I prefer to take my shoes off. I'm an old hippie. I prefer to take my shoes and socks off, walk around in the park and feel the energy of electricity through my feet rather than
Exactly.
an episode of EastEnders. I'm sorry, but that's just me. But,
No, it's true.
yeah, I do love my work. I do love
Yeah.
it. But and what Buddhism does is it gives you grounding. It roots you. One of the things about I don't even like to talk about trauma because I think what we have to remember with mental health is that there is gold in the mental health. You've got to remember there's not just bad, there's also good. I've got a coin at home that says love fate, and that basically means love the good and bad of life. Don't just love the good, always love the bad, because if we can love both good and bad, then we're on a good keel.
Yeah, and it's good you found your path
Yeah.
to recovery.
Yes.
Because obviously everyone works differently.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to.
That might
these
work
days,
for
what
you,
I
but
like
it
to
might
do.
not work.
No, absolutely. No, and some people that won't do that. So that's absolutely up to them. It's just my way of finding things. But one of the interesting things I think is about having come this far in Buddhism is the things on stage where you get a lot of stage fright. Now, with trauma, that can be quite tricky. So I like to know all my lines way in advance. I like to know. So by the time I'm ready to go, I've had a lot of time to practice or get myself there, because it can be quite unnerving if something just catches you off guard. You know what I mean? So you just have to be really, really prepared. I'm very, very prepared and very polished about what I do and very slick, because I gotta be.
Yes.
I gotta be.
So do you have a website where people can view you, social media
I don't
pages?
have a website.
No social media?
Yeah, I'm all over that. Yeah, annoyingly so, actually. Jonathon Hansler, I'm on Facebook as Jonathon Hansler, Jonathan Hansler, Hansler. And interestingly enough, I chose the name Hansler because my great-great-great-grandfather was the first person to be knighted by Queen Victoria.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. He was...
Yes.
Yeah, and apparently he was very tall and she was very short. And he's the only man in history to have been dubbed twice because she couldn't lift the sword to knight him. Because the other guys, the kings before, whoever it was, they'd all had the big swords, So she was tiny, and he's this guy, and when he kneels down, he's about 6'4". She's trying to lift this battle axe to try and dub him, and she could have cut his head off. So she actually said, "Do you mind going away?" And he called him back again and had a lighter sword made. And apparently, and I don't know if this is true, it could just be legend, but legend's wonderful in its own way. That's the sword that's used to knight all the peers of the realm.
That's amazing, yes. So anything else you would like to share before we wrap up?
Yeah, yeah, I'm doing 2 plays at the moment. I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm doing a play playing Stalin, which is it's called Vodka with Stalin, and it's a true story. It's a true story. I don't drink in it anymore. No, that's not the thing. I do that. In fact, Stalin didn't either. But that's another story. Did you know he used to give people water? He used to give everyone vodka, but he'd drink water himself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he didn't trust anyone. Anyway, yeah, so I'm playing Stalin in that, and then that's at the Gatehouse in Highgate from the 15th to the 27th of October. True story, based on a completely true story. And the other play I'm about to do as well, which comes shortly after that, is called Until She Sleeps, which is a brand new play which has got an award-winning off-West End winning director directing it. I play a husband whose wife is dying of motor neurons disease, and it's a really moving, very affecting.
Sorry. So when you say plays, do you mean theatres?
Yeah, theatres. Yeah.
That's
So I'm
what
doing
it
2
means.
shows. Yeah, one is at the White Bear. This is at the White Bear, and that's from the 5th to the 16th of November, and that's called Until She Sleeps. So yes, 2 shows coming up, and a film after that I'm doing. And that now this is interesting because any horror fans would like to know this. This is I don't know if you've heard of Hammer horror. Have you heard of Hammer?
I haven't heard.
You heard of Hammer? Hammer, one of the biggest. Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, some of the greatest horror people. Hammer was like the big thing in the 70s and 80s, and even today it's come back. A massive institution, and their rival was a company called Amicus. Now, Amicus in the 60s were responsible for films like Dr. Terror's House of Horror with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing and all sorts of big stars at the time. And now they did their last film 30 years ago, but they've come back and they are doing their first film in 30 years, and I'm in one part of that. So it's quite exciting. I'm doing that in December.
So have a look and, get tickets.
But also remember, guys, if you want to, Nichiren Buddhism is amazing. If you have got any things that issues, whatever you're feeling, have a chant, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. That's what I do for an hour every day. It's amazing. It's amazing stuff.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we will see you again. Thank you.